our next session, Key Panel 3, and the topic for same is Legal Pathways and Restoration After White Collar Crime. For the same, I would like to call on stage our moderator, Mr. Nitin Bhuwania, General Counsel at EaseBuzz. Please give a huge round of applause, everyone. Joining him on stage are our speakers, Mr. Pankaj Kumar, Chief Internal Auditor and Chief Risk Officer at CEAT. Please join me in a big hand, everyone. We have Anand Chaturvedi, Executive Vice President, Risk Management at Piramal Capital and Housing Finance Limited. And then we have our speaker, Mr. Srivats Kumar, External GC and Corporate Legal Consultant. Thank you, everyone. We can start with the session.
So this time we started on time, so we'll end on time, I hope, Sahil. Thanks Transformers again for keeping me as a moderator. And I think the sessions have gone all good. I was listening few of them. We talked about how frauds happen, and the last session was more about what to do after a fraud is being identified. So the topic of this session is being curated in a manner wherein we'll be talking much about what is the legal pathway and restoration. So we have dealt about control mechanism, we dealt about preventive deterrent mechanism, but let's try to get deep dive into something like what to do if there is a white collar crime which has happened. Everyone has come to know that, and probably we should also discuss about one important aspect. Do they get reported? Someone was asking this question right now. Do they get reported? What is the reason of not getting that reported? So I straight away put my straight question to Mr. Anand Chaturvedi, who is there. So Anand, tell me, like, what are the initial steps an organization should take when there is a white collar crime which has got detected? Like, organizations have come to know there's a white collar crime. What are the very initial steps they should take on that?
So the initial steps that any organization would take, one would be the remedial measures that they have to initiate. The other would be the communication that they have to do internally as well as externally. And so the remediation measures will include means like your root cause analysis to understand what went wrong, to understand means like what was the causation factors, and what the organization should do to ensure that there is no recurrence of the similar incidents. It will also ensure the kind of controls that they need to put in place to ensure means like, let's say if you have some kind of a fraud that has taken place, so there were certain process weaknesses, those process weaknesses have to be corrected. If the systems were not strong enough, then those systems have to be corrected. If there were people who were on the erring side, then there have to be disciplinary action against the people. So these are the kind of actions that have to be initiated. So that, and the other was means like the communication is very important. Means like how you do the communication internally as well as externally. So if within the company you have to pass on the message, then it has to be going in the right perspective. Means like you have to do, means like though it's a negative incident, but still you have to do in a positive manner with a positive perspective that you are concerned about the kind of incident that has taken place and not you're doing some sort of a blame game. If you start doing the blame game, then it becomes a very negative environment. So it is one of the shocking impact, means like the white collar crimes are having a lot of impact on the organization culture. So culture building is very important, and these are the events which define means like how the organization react in such kind of events.
Wonderful. Blame game, peaceful coexistence is what we are hearing. Mili Juli Sarkar, is that what people say? I should not report, you don't report. No, these are the important factors. And probably this is the session we are discussing something about this. Anand, you talk.
Just add one point.
Sure.
I think the most important thing should be forming of a crisis management team consisting of either the MD and CEO along with 3-4 key stakeholders. The PR communications, the employee stakeholder, because the communication to the employees comes in the last. In usual, all these things, the management remains silent to the employees. So I think that's most number one. Number two, with all your vendors and stakeholders, your market reputation goes down, something happens, your share price may go down, your stock may not go up in the market. So I think you have to communicate with all the people that we are here to take care of the company, everything will be sold, action will be taken for the wrong done. I think that strong communication plus bringing in place, if it's a big fraud, bringing a legal team in place and advocates in place, a PR communication team, I think all these should come together. If we don't do this together and do it in piecemeal, that is where the damage happens, because rumor mongering starts in the system. I think that one big crisis management team, and next, who will communicate to the external world, who will communicate to the employees, who will communicate to the stakeholders. If these three things are not done, I think because everybody have the same language. If a public calls, a press reporter is calling, they should also, Mr. ABC or Mr. XYZ is going to comment, please do that. And that should be done preparedness. I think that is the most important thing, I think.
That's so true. You should have the people in place to do the communication. You made the point the senior management should communicate. I have a question now. What if the senior management itself is involved in that? And
Like to add
yeah.
something to this actually means like there are multiple other dimensions also involved, because it has to be also taken into consideration that what kind of people are involved. So if it is
Yeah.
from the senior management, then the action is going to be very, very different. If person are from the junior management who cannot make so much of impact, probably it may be a regular course of action. But let's say if somebody who is CEO, CFO kind of a level person, or somebody from the board, if they are involved, probably you may be not in a position to even initiate action, because the control may be lying somewhere else. Probably the enforcement agencies will decide, or the investors will decide, or the regulators, or the external parties may be the decision maker. Then there could be another dimensions which could be means like the kind of impact. So if the crime is too big, which is posing existential crisis on your organization, then the action mechanism would be very, very different. All right, and similarly means like the regulatory environment. So if you are in a regulated entity like a bank or an NBFC, your mechanism is going to be very, very predefined, because regulator already has given a very means like comprehensive regulation. So let's say if you are a bank or an NBFC, you have been given that within which how much time you have to report the incident, to who all you have to report. So let's say you have to report it to the audit committee, to the board of directors, to regulator, to enforcement agencies. Then what kind of root cause analysis and the actions that you have to initiate. So all that is predefined. So if regulatory environment is very stringent, then your actions will be as per that. Then the kind of or the nature of white collar crime. So you can say the different shades of white could be there. Means like you can have cyber crime, you can have financial crime, data theft. So different kind of crimes will have different kind of actions associated to it.
That's right, and Anand, we are coming to those point. It's interesting in discussion going on. We are talking about something like when a white collar crime has been detected, what is the legal restoration and path? And I think we discussed about who is getting involved, what level. One of the very important point which comes to my mind is like how is the reporting hierarchy is made in the organization. Like, there need to be people in the system who need to report directly to the board. You talk about audit committee. The independence of audit committee or independence of the legal head or the general counsel should be there. And they should have so much of independent power that even they can question something to the board and then reach out to that. And here comes the point. If such a situation is built up, and this is to you, Mr. Pankaj, on this point, like, is it important to always have an internal investigating body or a committee, or simultaneously companies should have also external? And when is the time to decide that this is an external matter? I think we have this POS Act, there is external consultant there. So can you just throw some light, like when can one decide that this is an external matter and should be taken up with the external team?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the first thing in any crime is to establish whether crime has happened or not. For that, the second step is to collect evidences and to support it with all data that the crime has happened. And I think that the first institution or function which can do that effectively is internal audit, because they understand the organization, they're into all the functions, and they have an overview based on past experience that what kind of trend line patterns, etc. has been seen. So of course, the first level of investigation has to be done with the internal audit, and using all the effective data available inside the organization, and also their people connect. Because there is not only the formal data and information which comes, there are many informal informations are available. As we were talking that people don't speak up and they keep quiet. But this is the team which can just talk to people and get those informal things, not in a formal way. Everything is not a whistleblower. Always, every crime in any place, either corporate world or non-corporate world, their information is there on the field. Only thing is that we have to just catch up those voices. Always there will be voices which we miss out, which normally our intelligence agencies do. So there are many people moving around and catching up the voices, even at the chai ke dukaan or pan ke dukaan kind of thing. And then they collate it and see whether actually it is budding into something big or it's just information. So there the audit plays the role of collecting and seeing whether data is indicating to those allegations or kind of white collar crime which we talk about. Because first of all, the crime has to be said that crime happened or not happened. And that can only because we also talked about going to the court was the last resort. Now court will require evidences. And evidences will come from data or some witness. In finding witness in corporate world is not that easy. And maybe they are not aware also. If a crime is 1 or 2 persons, then there will be no witnesses at all. There's nothing like the normal criminal act happen. So the audit does, they will see the indicators. And now what happens, because there is a difference between when we are talking about, I think we are mixing two things. A crime happening in government or other public function and a crime happening in a corporate world. Now corporate world exists to do a business and business done on the trust basis. So every employee working in the business has given some authority. That is why private sector does better than government, because everybody has empowerment to take calls, take immediate calls, right time calls, and take away the business. The government is very bureaucratic, so there are 30 signatures required, 5 files will move. So when we go, so much of empowerment happens, which helps the business. We also have to see whether this empowerment does not stops. So we were talking about, I will just jump a bit, white collar crime and putting up a lot of mechanism. We should not overdo where system stops. Everybody stops taking calls. In any manufacturing and selling organization, the calls are even taken by the person who is on the front line. We call them the sales team of territory leader. If he will not stop taking call, he will go to his RM will go to his ZM will go to HO. Whole business will go for a toss. Ultimately, crime will happen only when there is a business. So this balance has to be made, and where is the sweet spot? It is always, you have to be dynamic. What I keep on saying, that if business is dynamic, process cannot be static. Similarly, the approach towards white collar crime cannot be static, because the way of crime is changing. And basically today we were focusing more on financial crimes. Today the bigger crime is the data crime. And I can say most of the organizations don't know about that, because we have not quantified the loss of data loss and converting to the financial terms. Recently only one MNC has filed one case. I have seen one case in last 5 years in India where they have thefted their recipes. And after the employees have left the organization. I have seen only one case. But that recipe leakage means that organization will suffer crores and crores of rupees across world. Because those were very patented things which employees took away as a knowledge and leaked. So internal audit comes to a point, but then there is a thing how to establish that the crime actually has happened besides the data points, and which comes the external world, which we call about the market intelligence and correct. And there is a time where audit decides, no, with this data, we are not even 100% sure. So let's take help of outsider. And that is a point where we say, let's go to an outsider, take his help to collect the further more evidences to prove it 100%. And so that actions can be taken. So this is an easy point, because there is always, all big listed companies will have a team. A team will sit together, they will investigate, they will come to some conclusion, initial conclusion. If it is concluded, then no external is required. But if it is inconclusive, then we say, let's go outside, which internal team cannot do, and it also has some consequences. So let us hand it over to the professionals who will bring the outside data. Again, this two will be collated and come to a conclusion. So this is how it happens.
So expert knowledge and independent behavior is something.
On this point, I think the fundamental rule I've seen in the last 2 decades in corporate world, external investigator will be brought in if the type of fraud is something which will underhit the existence of the corporate, may that a Satyam fraud or the ILFS, when the external government or the regulator brought an independent director aboard.
That's a post-investigation, I believe.
So immediately, in all scenarios, as rightly put by Pankaj, it has to be the internal team because they do it. But when the magnitude is so big that the existence will be it, you definitely will look at bringing the exterior one. Secondly, one due to internal investigation, you see something bigger is seeing, then you will always say yes to go. But Bringing external will come only when it's such a big one, like a 2G scam happened, some big scam happened where the company may not exist and you're looking at a huge investment by an external JV partner. So I think there is where the change happens. And lastly, in the previous question also, if the senior management is at fraud, who will sit? I think at that time, it depends on the hierarchy of the company. It is a board-driven company. It is a stakeholder-driven company. Government investment is there. A big regulator is there. I think they will step in and say, make a change. I think though it depends. I think it's also the speed of action. Sometimes we see you do it only to appease certain corners that we have done investigation just to showcase. But the intent has to be seen. Usually, if the intent is seen, people will step in immediately.
Just to add to that, look, the law has been changed, and the law says that if 1 CR plus, and it is not big, it is a very small amount for many corporates, has to be reported. So 1 CR plus, the moment it gets reported to the external world, then everybody gets involved. The regulators are by default getting involved, and they need a real-time update, and you have to take it to the conclusive, and they also have right to come and challenge your conclusion also if they want. So big fraud means white collar now, as per regulation, is defined as 1 CR plus. So amount is very immaterial if you talk about a company of 20,000 crore, 10,000 crore. Of course, so 1 CR is a very small amount, and those are going, very low threshold. But you have to be reported. It has to be reported.
So, good, the threshold point is coming out here at 1 CR. But like, let's say a situation where what is the legal consequence a company would face when a white collar crime is detected and they fail to report? And this is actually, they fail to report can be ignorance or can be perpetually done. So what is the legal consequence a company could face? Srival, so Anand can throw some light on this.
There are lot of consequences of non-reporting if you are in a regulated environment, then it is directly a breach of regulations. So 1 CR itself is a actually bigger amount because regulator in banks and NBFC wants every case which is involving 1 lakh and above to be reported. So every 1 lakh rupees case and above has to be reported, and then there has to be a quarterly update also to be submitted to the regulator. So it's like you have to give exactly and there has to be a lot of reconciliation on that what was the amount that you reported, how much was recovery during the quarter, what additional actions were done. So everything you have to reconcile, and it's a big activity altogether for banks and NBFC. There are large teams sitting to do that.
So listed company will have the team to do that, and they will do that because it's a public money. Banks will do that, it's a public money, as you say, right? But still you'll find companies, they try to hide or subside because they don't want to do a quarterly reporting. So I think the answer to that is having right set of people in place whose job is to report, whose job is to ensure that their actions have been taken. And this is a very important step because companies, many times it is seen that companies avoid that cost structure of a member who is just to report the stuff. He's like, why to report? Take it away. And this is something very critical. I've seen organization, people talk about that there are a few guys who don't do anything. Or they have to search a crime to happen to get that reported.
So as we earlier also in the earlier panel discussions, we had discussions about Bhaichara. So that takes place, and there are the kind of crimes which normally cannot be detected in internal audit as well as regulatory inspections. There is an intent to suppress those and put it under the carpet, but not a very good practice actually.
But that also has been mitigated to a large extent, and now stat auditors have a lot of liability on reporting this. So if nobody else reports, they are supposed to report. And paying the reviewer of all the books of accounts, they will definitely come to know even if you try to hide. At least it is some material value. So that's the regulators and regulation is put into place. So I don't think now, at least for listed company, non-reporting is an option beyond a point.
That's right. The compliance is compliance is mandatory. It cannot be an optional thing. No, I have one good point here to ask. If there is you have traced the asset. Asset is traced. Now we are talking something to do with what are the legal consequences and remedies you have. You have traced the asset. Is it like you have to obtain the asset or freeze the asset or get back the asset to your company if it is outside through the legal means? Or is it like you need to take help of the authorities to get back the asset?
So it's always a question of what kind of asset it is, what jurisdiction it is. Are you a regulated company? Are you a private company? I think the situation will change from corporate to corporate. But basic example, your home, your jewelry gets stolen it's recovered by the police. You go to court and get a superdari from there. So you have to do that basic thing. Similar cases that, or if it is an IBC, whether the property of the company is there with someone else, the RP goes and gets it back. So I think there is a methodology to each and everything, but you have to assess and look at it. But most important, yes, the intent is recover the asset of the company and bring it back. To the end of the day, it's the asset of the company and may have transformed hands, gone to someone else. But I think the intent of the corporate should be to bring back the money to the corporate, back it up and take action what is required, take it to a logical end.
So what I understand, Shival, like if you have still identified the asset and let's say the other side of it has acknowledged the crime, like, okay, this is what, and I'm ready to pay back to the company, whatever loss the company has suffered or whatever conflicting interest he has earned. Is it the right way to resolve the, like, you mediate with that and resort the solution? Or the right way is to go through the legal process? Is something I have a very important point to ask. And this has a lot of importance because we have auditors here on the panel, we have a lot of people from the risk compliance. Is it the right way just to ensure the asset is recovered from the other means, or is that the right way to have the documentation in place?
No, so I agree with you. There are two aspects to it. The first is we are looking at a very idealistic world where a fraudster will come back and accept he has done it because that is finishing himself for the criminal jurisprudence from there to go get convicted. Ideally, if we do it, that's one aspect. The other aspect is if you want to send a message very strongly in your organization or across to stakeholders, you have to take the path of fighting it out, nailing the guy, bringing the systems back into place and putting checks and balance again in place. So I think both the aspects are important, but somewhere if you're able to trace, because majority of said, like Pankaj said, usually in the today's world where the cyber incidents are happening, data breaches, you are not able to even identify and get the money back because it's not the data you want, it's the monetary benefit of the data someone has taken. But if you're able to get something, salvage and bring it back, but don't leave away the other element which is to do the rightful.
No, a very good point. Sending the message is important. Not many times I have seen in my experience, companies are like, no, we are getting back the loss, what has happened. Loss is getting recovered. Let's sort this out, khatam karte matter ko, is what the approach which is taken. This doesn't give a good message. Believe me.
Sorry, so I will add one point again, which I said earlier also. So companies exist for doing business and making money out of it. All the corporates exist for that. And within the law of the land and doing all compliances. So once a fraud has happened and company has two options, either what we are saying idealistic world, go file a case, take the person to the logical conclusion, send him to jail. And I can give one experience. We were fighting one check bouncing case and person went to jail, but whole money went for a toss. Because he decided that I will go to jail, I will not pay, I don't have money to pay. So then those are the things, and what did the company get and what messages? Of course, newspaper came that this guy went to jail, blah, blah. So we have to take a call, whether messaging, if we do out of some cases, messaging, we fight it to the last extent. Okay, let the world know that we are intolerant towards a few things and it is not acceptable. But for other part, of course, then companies take a business practical call, whether to what level and to what extent we want to go. And particularly reputational, we talk about reputational risk. Now, fraud is of 1 CR, goes to the field and you lose market share of 10,000 or 5,000. So then also is a realistic call. Recently, 2 years back, one big company had a fraud of a check getting diverted to some fictitious company, fictitious looking group company types. And the loss was 22 crores. It was reported as per the law. And the market loss in 1 day was 500 crore rupees. The cap market went out by that. So then again, are you protecting your stakeholders, shareholders, or you are damaging this thing? So these are not easy calls to take.
These are the human elements which you're talking about, and that has an important part.
Apart from that, it's the DNA of the organization. So I have worked with Tata Group for close to 10 years. One important mandate they had is they will fight on a principal matter for a 1 rupee sales tax demand if it's principally long, and if it's a wrong thing, they will not go and fight it because if there's something wrong, they will pay the penalty and close it. So it's the intent that comes from the top. That's one of the most important thing when you go. And if you look at promoter-driven company, I have seen something which I call, you say ABC, I will say CBA. They do a cost-benefit analysis. Rightly put a Pankaj. My expenditure is going to be 1 CR and my recovery is going to be 2 CR. Is it worth doing that or not?
So it's again goes back to the decision point, whether to initiate the legal action or not. But you have said a very good point. It's about the DNA of the organization. And this takes me to the next point of our topic, which is there. Like, action has been taken, recovery has happened, reputation rebuilding. How is that? How is that? It's important. How can you do that? Like what is the way you look? And I can put this to Anand. Like how do you build the reputation back? Because legal action has happened, and things happen in silos. Everyone doesn't know. Some people in the organization here in some corner, something has happened, others have happened. How do you build back the reputation?
So basically, it is more about a culture and the kind of trust that you build, and it is not done in 1 day or 1 year. It requires heritage, it requires lineage, it requires means like years and years of right work. So if you keep doing right things, even in difficult times, that is what enforces the trust of people. And as he mentioned, Tata Group, so I also have worked for close to 8.5 years in Tata Group, and I've seen this actually. And like there have been multiple such instances where they actually did right things. So culture building is primarily the thing, and other than culture, you need to have positive vibes. Means like, so everything that you do should have empathy, should have right controls, right kind of environment. That is what drives things. Transparency.
No, that's very important.
Yeah,
Yep.
just to add to him, what actually you should be when communicating and doing the reputational rebuilding. How do you detach your company from that incident? If people feel that okay, few people have defrauded the company in India socially, unfortunately what happens that victim is victimized, and not the person who has done the crime. So if company is very transparent, saying, look, we are a process-driven company and we are a compliant country, few individuals are taken for a ride, then the trust building becomes very fast. But moment the messages goes that, okay, maybe company also is involved into this, then there is a problem. So how transparently you detach and you prove to all your stakeholders, including internal one, in transparent way, that helps.
So
Nitin, 2
transparency
lines.
is coming very important here.
On this, 2 things are important when you come. Acceptance of the fact something wrong happened, and walking the path to show that we are going to take a new journey. I think if you demonstrate that in your action, things change a lot.
No, and I always see this example whenever we are having this discussion on governance, crime, corporate crime, corruption. You always see the name of Tatas or some bigger brands, and what is there in their DNA? That's need to be not taken. The organization need to take that stuff out and understand. And I believe what is more important is being transparent and bringing the transparency out. And it need to be both internal and external. And it's very important to be transparent with the internal folks in the organization, because there is an attitude or there is an air which gets built up. Like few people are closer to the management, even if they do something wrong here and there, can be taken off in a normal way, unless it is a regulatory requirement or it's a crime which is 0 tolerance. Otherwise, it's like, it's okay, it's a call. I can understand a decision factor is a different point, but a white collar crime is a different. So let's have clear line of distinction, and probably we can.
So primarily, see, we have, since our upbringing, we have seen competition, and this competitive nature means like gives us always a feeling that survival of fittest has been told, but it is not survival of fittest in the long term. It is survival of the finest.
So I think
Nitin,
we are
just
all
one
through.
last.
Yeah.
On this point, the most important, which I came from a Tata example, there are 3 reasons why I think a Tata group has a different philosophy. The first one is there is a DNA which is deep down with every senior management team. Number 2, when you recruit a candidate, I think they look at that ethos of trust, dignity. So one thing which was taught in all the trainings is don't call your partners, you call them not vendors, they're called stakeholders and partners. You don't call them as vendors. So I think you're recognizing them as a value chain. Second, they have something called a Tata Business Excellence Model. You are allowed to use their brand only if you live up to a reputation of a marking. So there are certain benchmarks. It is not just profit. There are a lot of other things. So Voltas didn't get the Tata brand in their name of the company because they didn't live up to that measurement score. So these philosophies has been enriched long back, and they've always said that for us, this come first, then others come. So I think if you speak that language and you demonstrate, it gets inculcated in all the people in the company. That's the difference.
So I think I have only one last question to everyone out here. What is that one notable control which you feel is important to ensure that organization should have and necessary should be there to restore a white collar crime which has happened and to build up the confidence? What is that one control or one activity the organization should do?
Giving a backing to the employee that if something wrong happens, we will not crucify you. If a whistleblower comes, many things, like you see the Boeing example 2 days back when the Senate was there, he senses that we crucified the person. So I think one is backing the employee with conviction. If someone comes up, we'll do the needful. I think trust. These two factors in transparency, it's all are overlapped. But if you can back up a person who is helping you, a long thing will go on that.
I would say it is depicting your intent internally as well as externally to the stakeholders, means like to your shareholders, to the investors. If there is a white collar crime happened and you go out in public and ask, means like convey that this is something which has gone wrong, and also means like if you yourself are responsible for some of the lacuna, then ask for the apology as well. And that messaging is very important because you have to take the ownership of something that has gone wrong, and you very, very clearly give your intent that we are doing the right things to ensure that whatever is necessary, we will be doing that. So if that you do, then it gives the trust of the market to you.
Yeah, so summarizing that, acknowledge there is a problem, assure stakeholders that this will not happen again, we have taken XYZ steps, and then find out the gaps, why it happened and where we failed, and plug those gaps. So assure, and then give a confidence, and then think public in general is very, with a lot of empathy, they take it very, very, and employees also do support when you are very, very transparent, so they also come up and help you out.
So I can understand one control we talked about is like backing the individual, and so that, you know, give the confidence in the organization with every individual that you go ahead, we are there with you. Something came out like being transparent, communicating right to the stakeholders, and acknowledging that something wrong has happened. We see many times people do a public notice to defend what has happened and give XYZ reason. I think the people are smart enough, the market is smart enough to understand that these are reasons coming out. Rather than that, you know, the people need to acknowledge that we went wrong somewhere, something. And this is what the wrong we have done. And there's a good point which Mr. Pankaj also made on that aspect, that you acknowledge it and you say what is the next steps the company has taken. I think all of this gives a good thought process on legal remedies or restoration, what we can do, or maybe not the legal exact way, but this is what the organization can do to build up their reputation.
Actually, it's all perception. Look, we have taken name of Tata many times. There is no authority or institution which has said Tata is a great company on this. But for years and decades of decades, they have built up that reputation. And it has not been built up by some ads or something. And even those who have not worked with Tata or they have not buy a Tata product, they still say, no, that's a good company. We also say XYZ is a bad company. Sitting here, we can name many companies, rattle many companies, name that bad company. So this is what is the perception which is built, and which is built years through a demonstration that you have. And Tata's a good example recently was one of the Tata group companies which went to exchange and said there is no loss to the company, still this has happened. And TCS reported that, disclosed that we have not suffered a rupees loss, but few of our critical employees were involved in some fraudulent activities with no loss to the company. That is a next level because they were not supposed to say that also. There was no one CR and something breached. But this is what, then people say, look, this is a company which is even acknowledging some fraud with a zero loss.